nice to have a peer of the realm in the studio. Sir Michael Fabricant, welcome to Talk TV.
Good afternoon. Good morning, rather.
Well, that's right. It's lovely to see you. And are you enjoying life outside the House of Commons, by the way? You've been a free man, a civilian, since 2024.
I am. You know, somebody once asked me, and it's a bit of a joke, but, you know, what do I miss most about not being in the House of Commons? And I told them the truth. It was the free parking in London.
It would be. Very central location, quite convenient. Perfect for the Millennium... Well, no, what's the wheel called? The
London Eye.
The London Eye, when you want to hop on that or if you want to pop into the Westminster Arms. And also, being a Knight of the Realm, Sir Michael Fabricant, congratulations. A proud moment for you and the family. Has it changed your life in any way, becoming Sir?
No. In fact, I don't use it. I mean, it always amuses me that certain MPs or ex-MPs put Right Honourable on their social media things. And I just think, this is not what social media is for. The only thing I put the Sir on is at the end of my email on the auto-signature, but not on other stuff like WhatsApp and text. And the only other thing is, it doesn't work, by the way, on British Airways. I'm a member of the club, used to be called the Executive Club, and there was a drop-down. And you see, I'm not a Mister anymore, and you've got to choose something. And I didn't want them to think that I'd sort of gone transsexual, but I had to... And then I saw they did have Sir, so I put the Sir on, and but it doesn't get you an upgrade or anything.
Does it not get you a better table at Greg's or Pret-a-Manger?
Well, I never tell them, you know, that I'm actually
you're too modest for your own good.
Well, you know, also the other problem is I don't actually look very much like a Sir, do I?
Do.
And beneath this table, I will let your viewers know, but also your listeners, I'm wearing a pair of shorts, which doesn't look very sort of knighthood-like.
Understandable in the balmy temperatures. Well, we will recognise you as a Knight of the Realm on Talk Breakfast.
A doctor told me, by the way, I should say to you, should you have made a comment about my shorts, but in fact I made it myself, was that I'm at a vulnerable age, and due to the heat, it's important that I wear shorts for medical reasons.
That's right, and keeping an airflow to the nether regions is absolutely key.
The undercarriage has to be kept cold at all times.
So I'm told. Well, you are a Knight of the Realm. We will recognise that on Talk Breakfast, which is why I shall be backing out of the room at the end of this conversation and never turn my back to appear. Listen, we need to talk about the amazing person that was Ann Widdecombe. What a horrendous, horrific week. We're devastated. When everyone's devastated, she was a national figure. You didn't have to agree with her or agree with her to not admire her. And to die under such appalling circumstances. We'll come to all of that. But you knew her well because your time in the House of Commons, you were there 32 years and had 23 years. Government minister, prisons minister under Michael Howard as Home Secretary. So a good political career and then life in the public spotlight. Tell me about Anne, the Anne that you knew.
Well, first of all, if you asked her to do anything, she would. She came up to Lichfield, got into a marvellous argument, by the way, which gave a speech for the local Conservatives, and then she was asked various questions, and she was asked about fox hunting. And look, it's quite a fox hunting area in my part of the world, and she was very anti-fox hunting, and I respected her for that. And she was very robust, I can tell you, with the questioner. But that was always her way. She had beliefs. And you know what? There are so many members of Parliament, and I sort of don't want to get party political, but honestly, I think this is the great weakness of Keir Starmer. So many members of Parliament and this current Prime Minister don't believe in anything.
I completely agree, and the incoming replacement to Sir Keir Starmer is as bad. Andy Burnham's been on more journeys than Phileas Fogg.
Yeah. I mean, I will talk...
What does he think today?
Well, exactly. I mean, when he came... I was with him in the House of Commons. He came in after me. He was an absolute Blairite. He could easily have been a Conservative. Now he's claiming to be left-wing. I mean, can you believe the guy? Anything he says. What does he believe in? He said only a few weeks ago that he was going to refund the WASPy women.
Correct.
You know, these ladies who feel that they weren't given the pension they should have. And now he's saying he won't refund the WASPy women. Honestly, I don't think there's
He previously thought there were 100 genders. Now apparently there's 2. He wanted to rejoin the EU. That was his dream. Now it isn't. The list goes on.
That's right. He said he believes in unions. He loves trade unions, he said.
Yikes.
And he loves even more the European Union. But now he's changed his mind because he knows it's unpopular. No, honestly, I don't think he's any different from Keir Starmer, except he's got a smile and eyelashes.
Yeah, and sort of a better wardrobe. I mean, he's basically man at M&S, isn't he?
Don't knock M&S. I'm wearing an M&S shirt right now.
Looking very smart on it. So what about Anne's politics? Did it surprise you when she left the Conservative Party?
No, because like me, and I've been on a journey, I mean, I could have joined Reform.
You might still.
No, I think it unlikely, but Nigel Farage is a friend of mine, and he did invite me to join Reform, but I said, no, I'm not planning to.
You like and respect him, don't you?
I do, because if it weren't for Nigel Farage, with all his faults, and boy, you know, he has got faults, as we know, but for all his faults, if it hadn't been for his constant campaigning, and in a tiny, tiny way, my producing a document at a very critical time called The Pact, which was all about how we would not win the 2015 election unless we either did a pact with, what was it called, UKIP in those days, or, you know, say that we were going to have a referendum and make a final choice. And, you know, and none of this would have happened.
That issue was going to be decisive for the Tories in 2015.
Absolutely, and it was decisive. And if it hadn't, we wouldn't have won. We wouldn't have won. Labour would have got back in.
It was David Cameron's decision to promise a referendum that helped the Tories to win an unlikely victory and a reasonable majority that, of course, Theresa May torched.
Yeah, but you know, the extraordinary thing is, I said to David Cameron, look, now you've done this, and I'm really pleased you've done it, don't take sides. Do like Harold Wilson did.
Very smart move. I'm the Prime Minister. This is a plebiscite. You decide.
Yes, he said he would leave it to George Osborne, but he couldn't
Good luck
help.
with that. I mean,
well, exactly. He couldn't help get stuck in, and that's what did for David Cameron.
Is there a worse sentence in the English language than leave it to George Osborne? In any context, big mistake.
Well, a friend of mine works for the British Museum, and although I don't particularly get on with George Osborne, and I know he doesn't get on with me for all sorts of reasons, I must say...
Well, he's not a Conservative for a start, is he?
Well, but he is doing a decent job at the British Museum, so I'll give him that, according to my friends.
Yeah, well, he can have that. He can have the Egyptian mummies.
And the Bayer tapestry, which I shall be queuing up for.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I've seen that already at Carpetright, so I'm fine. I'm good to go. Sir Michael, Anne the person. Now, I know you were not bosom buddies, were you? But then again, who was with Anne?
Well, and this is the thing. She had views, as I said earlier on, and she expressed them very, very firmly. But, you know, is that a bad thing for a Member of Parliament to have strong views? We were on opposite sides on Sunday trading. I felt shops should be open on Sundays. In fact, I was on opposite sides from my best friend, who at the time was running John Lewis, and they wanted to stay shut on Sundays. But no...
Andy Street, of course.
Andy Street. But...
When John Lewis was a successful business, I might add.
Absolutely, never knowingly undersold, although as a friend of mine, I used to taunt Andy with this. I used to say, never knowingly open. But,
That's true.
But they are now open. But, you know, back to Anne. No, she had forthright views, but she could be very kind and caring. If you asked her to do anything, she would. And, you know, she was prepared to make fun of herself. She knew how she was perceived, and that's why she did Strictly Come Dancing. She knew, you know, she didn't think she was some glamour puss, but she did it for a laugh. And funnily enough, I share the same agent with her, Cloud9 Management, and I know they're very distraught about it all. And you must be distraught, Mark, because wasn't Anne on your programme just hours before the event?
Yes, I was on air on Talk Breakfast on Wednesday morning. I was in for the brilliant Jeremy Kyle, and I'm very grateful to Jeremy that I was on air at that time. The reason being that I've been working with Anne for years and years and years, and it feels fitting that I should have the honour of her last on-air broadcast. Of course, I wish it wasn't. And at the end of that broadcast, when we said goodbye, I said, Anne, look forward to catching up soon, because she was a fixture on this channel. So it was very tough, but I treasure that last conversation we had.
And it must have been hours later, they now think, that the
it was,
murder happened.
because I think Anne, lovely Anne, may God rest her soul, was on air with us around 8 a.m, which was early for Anne, because she didn't like to be awoken too early. She preferred after 9, but for some reason they'd charmed her into coming on around 8. And as formidable as ever, as articulate as ever. And the team at Channel 5, who had booked her for a 1 p.m. appearance, couldn't get hold of her after midday. So the police are looking at that now. So it's likely that just a few hours after our last on-air conversation, we lost Anne. And it's, the Talk family, but the nation, because this is not really left or right. People were fond of Anne. She was a national figure.
She was a feisty fixture in our nation. And
a bit like you as well,
her.
she transcended politics, because you've done reality TV and you came across brilliantly on Big Brother. That was great fun. And now you're a top-level political commentator. You're out of the Commons, so you can really say what you think.
Exactly.
And it's not easy to reinvent yourself after frontline politics, is it?
No, many people fail at that and get very dismal when they leave Parliament.
They fade away and the phone stops ringing.
Yeah, and I've got friends who left the House of Commons and they just don't know what to do next, and they're lost, and I feel sorry for them.
Most definitely. Well, further reflections on the life and career of Ann Widdecombe in the company of the great Sir Michael Fabricant, former Conservative MP for Lichfield. What about that, by the way? 32 years, just extraordinary. And arguably, if the Tories, not Michael, hadn't messed up, then he'd still be there. But I'm glad he's not, because he's now pulling up trees as a political commentator and broadcaster. And we're going to ask Michael what he thinks next of Nigel Farage's by-election gamble. Can I thank my dream team for a fantastic show today so far? The brilliant Alex Farrell, who is a veteran of the Julia Hartley-Brewer breakfast show, which was his Vietnam. We also have Louis, who's directing our TV output, previously Liam. Dave, the engineer, is pressing the buttons. I've never sounded better. And a very, very warm welcome to Agna, who is taking your calls and doing a brilliant job. 0344 499 1000. And I've got a call in just a moment that I'm going to take, and it's Ralph. And he wants to talk, Sir Michael Fabricant, about Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader. It is one of the most striking political stunts in recent memory, Nigel Farage's decision to resign his seat in order to spark a by-election. I'm trying to think of recent precedent for that, and I can't find it.
I don't know about recent, but I do remember David Davis did this when he was Shadow Home Secretary. I can't actually remember now what the issue was, but he resigned as Home Secretary, and then
I think it was something constitutional, wasn't it?
It was, but I honestly can't remember. But what I do know is he did a deal with Labour that they wouldn't stand against him. Now, actually, this is the complete opposite of Nigel Farage, who didn't want to deal with Labour or the Conservatives, but Labour and Conservatives rather spiked him. So you've now got Andy Burnham backing the bin man, or I've forgotten what he's called.
Count Binface.
Let me give John Harvey, that's his real name.
I'll give you the details of David Davis's June 2008, resigned as an MP as Shadow Home Secretary to force a by-election because of civil liberties. He was protesting against Labour's proposal to allow terrorism suspects to be detained without charge for up to 42 days.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would have agreed with Labour.
I tend to agree. He lost the plot. So this is a big old gamble on the part of Farage. What do you think happened? Do you think that Nigel did not think this through, or is it a masterstroke?
I think it would have been a masterstroke if he'd been fighting Labour and Conservative and won. But sadly, he obviously didn't anticipate what did happen. And it's interesting that Kemi Badenoch denies she's had any conversation at all with the Labour Party about this. But here we see the Labour Party, the Conservatives and the Lib Dems not putting up a candidate. So it's going to be a pretty empty demonstration, unless, of course, Captain Binface, Sir Binface actually wins.
Is there a danger that Binface wins because he'll be used as the process vote, and if all of the left-wing parties come together, Greens, Lib Dem, Labour and maybe even some Tories that don't like reform, could old Farage be outnumbered?
Everything is possible, but I think it unlikely, actually, particularly knowing Clapton. I think he's in OK. But then, of course, the problem arises, and I don't think it's been explained clearly on the media, actually, what will then happen, because he will get back in. Incidentally, there's a whole constitutional point that if Binface gets in, he's not allowed to wear uniform in the chamber.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Speaker will say that this is a military uniform, dressed as a knight, not a knight as in I'm a knight, but a knight as in an old battle knight, you know, so he's wearing a uniform. So he may have to reveal himself, which might be embarrassing.
Well, I've worked out the sartorial solution, because he can't go into the House of Commons dressed as Count Binface, but he could wear perhaps a rather nicely tailored bin liner.
That would be splendid, yes. Like, that remind me too much of COVID, but anyway.
It's a good point.
But no, with Nigel Farage, I think he will win, but then he'll face the inquiry that's going on.
Because that doesn't go away, does it, Michael?
No, it does not go away.
It pauses.
It pauses, but it will then continue when he becomes an MP again, if he's found guilty, and he may not be guilty, but if he is found guilty, and if, there's lots of ifs here, he has 10 days when, if he's sort of fined for more than 10 days, that he has to be away from the chamber, it would then be up to 10% of the people in Clapton to call another by-election. Now, that might not happen, but the general assumption is that it probably would.
That would be fascinating. Let's take the views of Ralph, who's in Banbury. Good morning, Ralph. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. You're live with Sir Michael Fabricant. Ralph, what would you like to say?
Good morning, Mark. And,
good morning. Top of the morning.
Thank you for taking Michael. OK. Yeah, OK. Yeah, top of the morning to you as well. My primary point is going to be about, I actually think that Nigel Farage, Nigel and Reform has misjudged how to handle this matter. Yeah. Because I think what they've done, I think they've reacted with a knee-jerk reaction. Look, the country needs reform. The country needs to be reformed, which is bigger than Nigel Farage, and it's bigger. And I'm a supporter of Nigel Farage. But at this point, you'd be very naive to try to support him in what he's gone and done. He's had a £5 million donation or gift, and it is within his right to say, well, this is a personal matter, and I don't care. But for reform to win an election, it needs a greater voting support than die-hard supporters like myself.
Do you think, can I ask you,
as a whole,
do you think
just ignore this matter and go, well, look.
Do you think, though, that Reform could do as well without Nigel Farage?
Hello?
Oh, do you know something, Ralph? I think there's an issue with your line, because I think that you're able to speak, but I think you can't hear us, so we'll have a look at remedying that. What do you think about this, Sir Michael? Does Reform exist in the absence of Nigel?
Well, that is the big question that I was asking Ralph. Sadly, no answer came.
But you
don't know.
You know your politics.
I think it's a one-man party. I just don't see Richard Tice or the others attracting the electorate like Nigel Farage does. I may be wrong. Well, but and of course, the thing about Nigel, I love it, but he doesn't like a great deal of competition in his own party. He likes to be the voice. So if he weren't there, maybe others would get more of a chance and they would appeal to us more. But at the moment, I think it unlikely.
So, Michael, are you able to stay until 10 a.m?
I sure am.
Oh, we're so happy to have you live in the studio. I'm getting so many messages of support having you in. People are loving your words of wisdom. And it's great to see. We often speak to you live from your Lichfield constituency, because you're one of those rare beasts, a former MP who did actually care about the area to the extent that you're still there.
Yeah, people seem surprised. Even Lichfield people seem, oh, you're still here? Great, fantastic.
Well, it's because you meant it when you said that you cared about Lichfield.
Yeah, well, I don't just care about Lichfield. It's actually a stunning, beautiful place. It's just sad that people have heard of Lichfield. They don't know where it is.
Has it gone down the toilet since you stopped being the MP, by the way?
No, nothing would send Lichfield down the toilet.
Is it slightly diminished?
Let's put it this way.
Is there more chewing gum on the pavement?
There's certainly more of an MP. He's about 18 stone. So, no, I'm being unkind.
I like that dig. All is fair in love and war, Michael.
This is true.
Sir Michael Fabricant is live in the studio taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. Ralph, thank you for that. Sorry we got disconnected. Let's, before the break, take, if we can, David, a couple of quick voice notes. This from Kate on Binface.
Can we not lose sight of the fact that Binface's campaign is being paid for by none other than Dale Vince? If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, I don't know what does. Thank you. Bye, Kate Wirral.
Kate, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. This guy is a left-wing stooge. How about a voice note from Diane?
Morning, Mark. This is brief but relevant. So much about this 5 million. What about the donations to Labour, Conservative and Liberals, albeit legal, but underhand, as the donators received large contracts or places in the House of Lords? Nigel's 5 million in comparison? Chicken feed. Thanks, Diane.
Diane, thank you for that. More to come. Sir Michael Fabricant taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. We got some great news. It is coming home, 9:48. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. And England beat Norway. We are through to the semi-finals. For reaction, delighted to welcome the Arsenal reporter at The Sun, Simon Collins. Simon, have you had any sleep?
I've had more sleep than I did after the Mexico game anyway.
Look, it was all about the result, wasn't it? Some question mark about the performance. Is it being too negative to worry that we weren't that good?
No, I think it's right to have some concerns. England didn't play as well as they can do. But I think what we've seen in this tournament, the mentality of this group is incredibly strong. And also when you've got players like Jude Bellingham, like Harry Kane, who can deliver those magic moments, that can be the difference. And it's the same, you look through past World Cups, big players turn up and can drag you over the line, and Bellingham did that against Norway.
Simon, your brilliant paper is reporting that Thomas Tuchel, the manager, is very unhappy with England's performance. Do you welcome that sort of approach that nothing is good enough, or do you think he's being too negative there?
No, I think he's right to set those standards, because I think if you looked at purely the performance and not the result, you would say England didn't play as well as they can. And I think it's right for him to push this group. But also, I do think there needs to be an acceptance of the situation, of the heat, of the calibre of the opposition. And the main thing is that England found a way, didn't they? And that is the big thing in knockout football.
Most definitely. Well, we're live, Simon, with Sir Michael Fabricant, and you've barely stopped smiling since last night, right?
Well, this is true. I'm not a huge football fan, but I watched the match last night. And, you know, if it hadn't been for the decision on the VAR that they weren't going to accept that Norwegian goal, I fear it would have ended up with a penalty shootout, and we often lose out on penalty shootouts. Thank God it didn't come to that. Can I also say, by the way, that, you know, compared to the Moroccan fans, the Norwegian fans have behaved so brilliantly.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful video going the rounds with a belt or a carousel in one of the airports with all the Norwegian fans doing the row thing.
Fantastic.
And it comes round and then there's a TSA, one of those police, you know, armed police guys on the belt with them doing the row. Compare that with how the Moroccans behave. But yeah, I was worried last night. I didn't think at several points that we had control of the pitch.
And Simon, we have the small matter of a semi-final against Argentina on Wednesday at 8 p.m, which is a very civilised time. But to say the least, there is a little bit of beef between ourselves and Argentina.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to be talking about the hand of God, I think, for the next 3 days, aren't they? It's going to bring up all those memories. And, I mean, what better stage for it than a semi-final of a World Cup? I think for a lot of England fans, you could exercise some demons by beating Argentina and booking a spot in that World Cup final.
Yes, and of course, Gary Lineker, who we've been discussing earlier, won the Golden Boot in that competition, but it wasn't enough to prevail against Argentina on that occasion. What about Wednesday? What are we up against, Simon?
Well, I mean, the main man is obviously Lionel Messi, isn't he, who seems to be defying any sort of age and physics by being 39 years old and performing that well. But I think if you look at Argentina in these knockouts, even that game against Switzerland, I think defensively there is some encouragement for England. I think they'll believe that they can get at them. And if you can find a way to keep Messi quiet, which I know is a big if, you've got an opportunity. And I think England will believe that they can reach a World Cup final, which would be absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm going to be abundantly positive. We're praying for a victory. Simon, one question, though. Are we too reliant on the likes of Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane?
I think you could argue that, but then in the same way, you could look at other teams and say, oh, are Argentina too reliant on Lionel Messi? Are France too reliant on Kylian Mbappe? I think when you have these star players, you naturally turn to them. And the big thing for England is having Bellingham and Kane, because I think the two of them have dovetailed really well. Bellingham last night was the man. We've seen it from Kane in other games. And having those two going into this semi-final is why everyone should be optimistic that this can be the chance for England.
And Simon, it's been a good World Cup, hasn't it?
It has been a great World Cup. And the big thing is those big players turning up. How often do we say that they haven't performed? But we've got to two semi-finals, Spain v France, England v Argentina. I mean, that is absolutely blockbuster.
Fingers crossed for Wednesday. Simon, I've really enjoyed the coverage in The Sun. Keep up the brilliant work. Simon Collins is the Arsenal reporter at The Sun newspaper, which is #1 for World Cup coverage. I think they've got a great line, Sir Michael. We're World Cup for it.
I wonder, you know, I've got that book of Sun headlines, you know, the famous one being Gotcha, of course, when we were talking earlier on about the Falklands crisis.
True.
But, yeah.
And by the way, that does make Wednesday quite loaded, doesn't it? Not just the hand of God and Diego Maradona, but the small matter of a war in 1982.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, things move on, although actually they're still claiming that the Falkland Islands are a part of Argentina. It never actually ever was. Just like the Chagos Islands, incidentally, never were a part of Mauritius. So.
In a moment, we're going to come to Ronnie in Kent. But now that you've mentioned both of those issues, Andy Burnham, we're told, is going to double down on the decision to give away the Chagos Islands, which is going to cost us billions.
Yeah, and it's not going to do much good, is it, quite rightly, for British-US relations, because the US see what it is. You know, it's an absolutely foolish move. We're going to be paying rent to give the Chagos Islands. We're going to be giving, what was the figure?
30 billion over 100 years.
30 billion pounds to a country which is in hock to China. China want to put military bases in the Chagos Islands. I mean, what on earth are we doing? Now, it started under the Conservatives. James Cleverly was Foreign Secretary.
Correct.
He allowed the civil servants. This is always bad, by the way, when a Secretary of State lets the civil servants set the agenda. But anyway, he started it.
Is that because they're lazy?
Lazy or they're not on top of their job.
Right.
But anyways, the point is Rishi Sunak said you have to be joking and stopped it. But of course, Keir Starmer, believing that international law is more important than the welfare of the United Kingdom, said, oh, we should definitely go ahead and do it.
And meanwhile, before we get to Ronnie and memories of the wonderful Ann Widdecombe, Gary Lineker has referred to the Falkland Islands on his football podcast that no one's watching, which is called The Rest is Football. He's referred to the Falkland Islands as the Malvinas, which is the terminology used by Argentina, who have, in their deranged minds, a claim on those islands.
Yeah, and it never was, as I said just now, a part of Argentina.
So it's not a case of them taking it back?
No, absolutely not a case
Same as Chagos and Mauritius.
Absolutely right. And, of course, the majority... And Britain has always... Let's be clear about this. Britain has always said, if the people in... Well, actually, there are very few in the Chagos Islands. It's not inhabited, actually, except by... But... we've always said in the Falkland Islands and other overseas territories, of which we still have a number, that if the majority would prefer to be self-governing or go in with another power, so be it. But, of course, the majority of people, probably 99% of people living in the Falkland Islands, proudly want to remain British. So, you know, Argentina has absolutely no claim whatsoever to these islands.
Briefly, what's Gary Lineker up to? This is a guy that called October the 7th the Hamas thing and effectively characterised Suella Braverman as Adolf Hitler by referring to Rwanda, a sensible plan that we should have done, as echoes of 1930s Germany.
Yeah, I can't make him out. I don't know whether he's completely off the wall and foolish or whether, in fact, he's highly intelligent in saying to himself, I'm going to say the most controversial, ridiculous things in order to try and make some money and still be relevant. But you know what? I think it's the former. I think he's just a footballer who sadly has just done far too many headers.
I think that's a great line. That's brilliant.